And for people who say, well, it's national is the problem, but the states are the last shot for the republic, people.
Right.
And if the states don't start standing up and demanding the federal government do what's right, that's where the ball is lost. But the states have that ability. And when we start doing that, you'll start seeing other states get bold, and you'll see things change across the country. And it's up to us to do it when we're less than 4 weeks out. And if we let this slip by because we were watching football or we were tired, our kids are going to pay for it forever. That's how serious it is. I don't want to live in Europe. I don't want to live in a Soviet bloc country. I don't want to become a third world country. And it's up to us to do it. And other people have made a lot more bigger sacrifices than we have, and gone through a lot more dangers than we have, other than, spending a Saturday working on a campaign. It's not that big a deal.
There's 2 Senate races that are in close proximity to Jefferson County. The one we mentioned in Coleman. That's not too far for y'all to get involved. Where Dr. Busman's. Then the Tuscaloosa. Carol Allen is running against our good buddy Phil Poole. And Gerald Allen, incidentally, is ahead in the polls. That's one race I did not mention a while ago. And if we can take out Phil Poole, that's another switch from Democrat to Republican. And Gerald Allen has an excellent chance of winning. So those are 2 races close by that y'all might consider getting involved in.
I have one more question.
You only get one.
I got the lump.
Yes, ma'am.
I've talked to you about this before, Scott. Term limit. Will someone propose a term limit bill? And then another question I have is, if we can't get term limits on senators and representatives, if there will be term limits proposed on chairmanship.
I don't know how you would limit terms as far as chairman. I mean, that's part of the legislative process, and that's what we do during the organizational session. Now, I'd like to limit people like Lowell Barron and Roger Bedford and Hank Sanders. But when the Democrats are in control, they are going to put those people as chairman of the same committee. As far as term limits for us, well, that would be easy for me now.
That's so unfair. So unfair. Well, let me point out 2 things. I know you were at the meeting when I talked about this before. I do think, and I've always been a proponent of about a 3-term term limit. I've always said it takes 1 term to know what you're doing. The 2nd term, you're probably doing a good job. And the 3rd term, you're probably getting to be too good of friends with the bad guys. And you start saying things like, oh, well, Joe's my friend. Let him pass that. I know it's going to cost us $2 billion, but let Joe pass it. So a 3-term term limit, I think, is something that's reasonable. But since y'all are informed voters, let me warn you of something before we all get on the term limit bandwagon. Okay? Oklahoma, who has passed unbelievably conservative legislation over the past few years. Does everyone agree with that? Okay. I have a friend of mine named Glenn Coffey, who just was the president pro tem of the Senate there. Very conservative, good, solid Christian guy, low tax guy. I mean, he's been shepherding through all these immigration things and things of that nature. The conservatives were elected in a year like this in Oklahoma. They came along and did great things. They term limited themselves out. Now, maybe conservatives will replace them. Let's go to Florida. We're in the mid-90s. They kept taxes low. They did great things in Florida, right? They came in, they were swept in 94, they took over the Florida legislature, the conservatives stood up, they said, term limits. They term limited themselves out. Guess who replaced them? The squishy moderates. You can always find those guys. You can always find those guys that are going to, get elected so it helps their law practice, helps their real estate business. And y'all notice how Florida's done in the last couple of years? Not near as well. Remember, the speaker was working at a 2-year school down there. That's what you got to decide. Can you replace the conservatives when you term limit them out? The very guys who will sponsor the bill will term limit themselves out. Who do you replace them with? That's all I'm asking.
We're getting squishy. If we could get true conservatives in there and they would vote their conviction and values, the moral, I don't think that many people would have a problem. But lately, that's not what's been happening.
Oh, I agree. I don't disagree with that. That's why I said I've always thought that. And until the last couple of years when I've seen the reality. And that's another thing I think Alabama's going to get when we begin to do these things. I think there's going to be a lot more debate about issues. You know, I freak some people out, and I want to ban back-to-back transfers. But at the same time, remember that a lot of challengers trying to beat tough old mean people almost live on back-to-back transfers. So you run against me, say I'm the meanest guy in the legislature, okay? And you're a new guy and you want to replace me. St. Clair County, somebody wants to run against me. And say I'm very, very powerful like Jabbo. And I'm a mean guy. If you give money to my opponent, what do you think those guys say? They say, you're done. Whatever bill you want, you're done. You're done. Forget it. You're out. You're done. So how does the challenger get money? That's the question. And I think Alabamians are informed enough now to let's start talking about those things. I still think we're better off banning back-to-back transfers. But to replace that, normal people are going to have to start giving some money. You want to know why some of the process is so messed up? Because you send out a letter to raise money for office. It cost you $3,000 to send it out. You raised $2,500. Because a few people gave you a couple hundred, and then normal people wouldn't even send you 25. Now they got a bass boat, they got a four-wheel drive, they got HD channels on their cable, but they can't send their conservative legislator $25. And then along comes Mr. So-and-so Association, and he gives you $20,000. Who gets to go in the door first when session starts? The $20,000 guy. Let me tell you how you fight back on that. This is a story. Joe was like, I wish you'd shut up. But I want you to know all these things. It's a great story. The chiropractors always used to get beat up in the legislature by the doctors. I think you were a benefactor of this. The doctors had, because they helped Jabbo, I'm sure. Helped Mark Gaines, a bunch of the guys. The doctors would always win, because they had more money, and they gave more money. So the chiropractors one year figured it out. They said, why don't we go help some candidates? So what did the chiropractors do? They took about 2 Saturdays in an election cycle and they went door to door for people. They didn't spend any money. They spent a few hours on a couple of Saturdays actually walking a neighborhood with a candidate. Now, the next legislative cycle came, guess who won the battle? It was the chiropractors. There's a guy in my district named Louis Pearson. I have run, believe it or not, I've run for office 5 times now. It's terrible. Terrible. Since 1994, I lost the first one. I won the rematch, but I lost the first round. Louis Pearson has helped me every single time I've ever run. He's a great guy. Never asked for anything. He believes in me. And I can tell you honestly, without a shadow of a doubt, if the president of the power company was in my office, a whole slew of those guys were in my office, and Louis Pearson calls, and my secretary says, Senator, Louis Pearson's on the phone. You know what? I'm going to talk to Louis Pearson because he helps me no matter what.